Well, let me just check the sound, make sure that the sound is coming through. 1, 2, 3. Sounds alright. Yes. Sounds alright. Yes. Cool. Alright, well, we'll be starting here in 2-3 minutes, so I'll let everyone show up. It's going to show. Hang on until then. I don't think it crashed. I'm just not saying anything. I'm waiting until 2 o'clock. Can't talk until 2 o'clock. How's that? Is that better? All right. Let's see, it's almost 2 o'clock. We'll give it another minute and a half. Singing. Now you gotta go to Goth Daddy's. Goth Daddy's the one that sings. I never sing. Ever. Okay. Do. First class. Oh, wow. Well, I hope your first class is first class. Alright. So, I guess it's 2:01, so we'll get the class started now. First of all, hi everybody. How's everybody doing? It's good to see y'all here. There's a lot of people. It's awesome. So today we're going to be talking about some of the different ways that we can make patterns, all kinds of patterns. Sketch Club is actually very good at making patterns. It has a number of tools that can be used to create interesting and useful patterns. So I'm going to be showing you some of the ones that I've discovered. I'm sure there are others, but this will give you some food for thought and get you started on your explorations into pattern making. Alright. So I've got up here a pattern that I made earlier. You can see it's pretty intricate. It's got some interesting patterns to it, a lot of colors, a lot of shapes. And we'll be looking at different ways to make patterns. It's pretty hard to recreate the exact same pattern twice, so we will create some patterns though, and we'll then toward the end of the class I'll show you some different ways that you can actually use the patterns that you create. So let's start a new one here. I use a square canvas for this. Now one of the easiest ways to make patterns, to make a pattern, is to use the mirroring tools. Up at the top of the Sketch Club app there's this little squiggly line, and when you tap there you can see the shape and mirroring tools. So for mirroring, for making patterns, you can use any of the mirroring modes, but I like to use both. So this will mirror whatever you do both vertically and horizontally. And for the pen, I have chosen the Happy fountain pen, and I'm just going to draw a few squiggly lines to make my pattern. So we'll just draw some spirals maybe, with a couple of little flourishes here and there. Then once you have your initial four-part pattern like that, then we'll go to the layer tools over here. We'll choose the transform tool. We will put the tiled checkbox on. I guess it's a checkbox. And then as I resize my pattern, it will duplicate it like you. And now I have a very easy to make, nice little repeating pattern. Alright? Doesn't show up very well on my computer screen. I should have made it darker. So that's a real easy way to make a pretty little repeating pattern that you want to use, for a background or an overlay or something. So let's do another one. Show you a slightly different way to do it. This time we'll put our mirroring on. We'll use a slightly darker pink this time. Now this time I'll draw some squiggles or something. You want to fill up the space. Squiggles for the win, yes. Now this time, instead of using the transform and tile, I'm going to use the kaleidoscope filter. Now to get to the kaleidoscope filter, you go to your layers, you tap the filter button, and then from this drop down here you choose kaleidoscope. Then the kaleidoscope has some controls at the bottom. One is rotation, which lets you kind of turn the canvas around, and one is size, things down or make things bigger, which will shrink her. So what I want to do with this one is create one that has like a lot of interesting filled in shapes, something like that. Yeah, you'll see all kinds of interesting shapes. By the way, this is a suggestion I have for Black Pawn, if you're listening, about the kaleidoscope. It would be cool if we could change the number of facets. I think it's hard coded to 6 facets. It'd be cool to be able to do like 9 or 12 or something. Just for fun. See what other kind of crazy stuff we come up with. Okay. So, now here's something that we can do. Now that we have our pattern, let's turn off our mirroring so it doesn't interfere with what we're about to do. We will take our pattern and we will copy it down one time. So I now have 2 copies, one on each layer here, of my pattern. I'm going to take the lowermost one and I'm going to go to the filters. And this time I'm going to choose the color adjustment filter up here at the top. Color adjustment. Then I'm going to use the brightness slider on the color adjustment filter, and I'm going to turn it way down so that this becomes almost black. You can turn it all the way down to black if you want. I'm going to make it almost black. So now you can barely see it because it's behind the other one, but we're going to fix that in a second. We now have the two layers. We have the upper layer, which is the lighter pink, and the lower layer, which is identical to it except for a darker color. And I'm going to go to my handy dandy transform function. I'm going to bring up my little pop-up here that has numbers in it, because this is one of the times when numbers are useful. Up here in the delta X, I'm going to type 7, or maybe 8, since this is pretty big. We'll use 9. So I'll put a 9 there, and in the delta Y, I'm going to put the opposite of that, minus 9. There we go. Now we close all this down. We make sure that we hit the done button. So now we've created basically a shadow of the upper layer using the lower layer. So it now looks like it's three-dimensional. Notice that all of the areas in between lines are still transparent. Alright, so if I go down to the tiled was not on. Tiled was not on. I just did the shadow without it. There was no tiling. Okay, so as I was saying, these are all still transparent. So down at the bottom here, I'm going to do a color fill of the lower I can't even think today, the lower layer. So whatever color I put down here at the bottom still shows through, as you can see, all of the holes. So those are still holes, which makes it very useful. Alright, so let's clear it again so we don't get confused. Now, up here on the top layer, I'm going to actually do some fills and stuff. But before I do that, let's save out our layer, so that we have it for future reference. When you're creating patterns, whenever you come up with a really cool one, something that you like, you should save it, because it's like I say, it's about impossible to recreate them, and you can load them back into other things you're working on. As long as you're not in a compo that won't let you do image loads, it's perfectly valid to load your pattern in and use it in another sketch. Alright, so let's go to the fill tool here and see what we can come up with. Fill. And then I'm just going to pick some interesting colors, and I'm going to, just by tapping on them, fill in some of these. Oops. I guess I've got to set my threshold up to 0, and I want to consider all layers off so that it just looks at the one layer that I'm trying to fill. Now it's still not doing what I want. Maybe threshold is 0. I always forget how this works. There we go. Alright, so I just want to fill in some of these a little bit. So threshold has to be 0. Consider all layers off. Alright, that's the thing. And we'll just add some colors to some of these guys, fill them in a little bit. Like this. This is going to be a very colorful pattern when we're done. Well, once you save it out as into a sketch club file, you can always load it back and then save it to your photo roll. Like when you go over here to the actions menu, down at the bottom there's the send to part. You would choose photos here, this one right here, and then you choose PNG, or if it's got transparency you can use transparent PNG. And then you can always use the load image file, the load image command in the layers to load it back in. I'm using the uppermost layer, I think, to do the fills right now. I mean, you can see that there's a little bit of a space that's in between there where it doesn't quite fill, but that doesn't matter for what I'm going to do with it. If you're worried about it, you could always by hand fill that in a little bit better. No, you're right. If you do a load image, it will show up as an image load. Okay, I'm back. Let's see if there's sound now. It didn't actually crash. Just the sound stopped working. Okay, we're good. Alright, anyway, now that I have filled some of these with colors, let me put some kind of a color here in the back. I don't know what color I want back there. But let's put some kind of a purple back there or something. Oops. I want color fill. Maybe we'll use a really... Yeah, let's use blue. Something like that. Alright, so I'm going to call this my master pattern here. And now I'm going to do some darkening and lightening effects. Let me save this out in case we crash. Save. What I'm showing you here are just, possibilities. I mean, there's obviously all kinds of ways to do this, but so let's go up here to the topmost layer. We're going to set it to multiply, maybe 50% or thereabouts, and I'm going to fill it with black. Okay, 50% is not enough. Let's make it 60, 70%. I want it to be pretty dark. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now I have used multiply on this layer at 69%, all black. And that has darkened the whole thing. Oh, there's a question about the fill. Yeah, consider all layers is supposed to make it look at every layer. So in our particular case, it probably wouldn't have mattered since the two layers were almost identical. But I usually turn it off when I'm doing this because I know what it'll do. I just wanted to look at the one layer. Alright, anyway, now I have darkened the entire thing, and I'm going to do what I call reverse lighting. I'm going to take an eraser, fairly large size, and a very low opacity, and I'm going to erase on the multiply layer, and what that will appear to be is like I'm lightening, like light is shining where I erase, and I will just kind of lighten up certain parts, being somewhat random about it, just whatever I think looks cool. I'll lighten them up a little bit. Mostly I just want to give it some difference. And by the way, the darken everything with multiply and then erase to create light is a nice way to do lighting in on any kind of a painting that you're doing. You can always use it to create this sort of glowy, light is shining sort of effect. Alright, so I've done a few parts like that. Then I'm going to do the opposite kind of a thing on the next layer. The next layer I'm going to set it to dodge, and I'm going to use a nice big soft round brush, again at a relatively low opacity, and I will paint with like a medium gray. And what I want to do here is create some highlight areas. Dodge does the opposite of multiply. Multiply darkens, dodge lightens. So I'm going to create a few places where it's even brighter, so it looks like the light is hitting there really hard, like that. Just to make it a little bit more striking. Okay, so now we've created this kind of, I mean, it's interesting. We got an interesting pattern with some kind of cool lighting effects. So we'll save this out here. Save it. And now we'll take this whole thing, which we've got here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers. Click down on the bottom layer and we will merge them all together. So now everything is on a single layer, right here. One layer. And we will go to our handy dandy kaleidoscope filter with this fancy thing that we've created. And now we will start turning it around until we see what we get. And depending on the size and the rotation and where you put the lights, you'll get different things. Sometimes it's always a kind of an adventure to see what you're going to get. That's kind of cool. I think I want to lighten up some of this other stuff a bit, so I'm going to use another dodge layer, because I want some of these other places to be lightened up a bit too. And then I'll do it again. Oops. I forgot to merge. We'll do the kaleidoscope again. Let's see what we get this time. There we go. So you see, that was easy to do, but it looks really intricate and really interesting. To make a really nice background for something, and you can also overlay it and do other cool stuff with it. Alright, so let's save this out. See, before I show you how to use patterns, I want to show you some other cool ways to make them. Any questions on what I've done so far? We'll stop for a moment in case there's questions. No, I didn't blacken. I just used a light gray and painted on it. Yeah, I'm recording this and it'll all be posted. I will post it both to YouTube and up to my page when I'm done. I don't know about a compo. That's up to the powers that be, but we can do a patterns compo. I mean, there's nothing wrong with just doing a cool pattern and uploading that, because the patterns themselves are pretty cool. But I will be showing you some ways to use these patterns. in other ways than just, wow, cool pattern I made. Alright, so let's move on to another cool way to make a pattern. And let's make sure that I saved that one yet, in case I didn't. I think I did. Yeah, I did. Alright. New. I usually make them on a square canvas, but they also work on non-square canvases, and you get different effects, so it's worth experimenting. Alright, we'll use black. Now one of the most fun things to use, believe it or not, to make patterns is the text tool. The text tool can create some really cool stuff. So let's just type in sketch. And we'll use sketch. Then you pick a font. We'll use a kind of a curly one here. This Snell round hand bold will work just fine. I'm going to use mirroring again. Put my mirroring on both. You can affect the patterns you get by what letters you use, but we'll just use sketch for now. And then let's just draw. I'm going to use the line so I get straight lines here. And I'll draw out something interesting with the word sketch. Make it bigger. There, something like that maybe. And then we'll go to our filter. Can you guess where I'm going? Kaleidoscope. Yeah. Now we'll rotate this guy around a little bit. There we go. What's nice about it is because you used a font, you know, there are all these little swirlies and squigglies, and it's all very precise looking. You can get some pretty amazing patterns by using the text tool as your starting place. Now let's say we wanted to make this three-dimensional. How would we do that? Since we started with black, we have to use the opposite method. So we'll copy this down so we have two copies. Then we'll go up to the top one this time instead of the bottom one. Go to filter, go to color adjustment, and this time on the brightness we'll turn it way up. We'll make it white. Now it looks like this. We go to transform, and this time we'll use a positive value here. Maybe 7, 6 works. Depends on which way you want the shadow to go, whether you use a negative number or a positive number. There, I'll use -6 and 6. That's what I wound up with. So now I've created this three-dimensional lacy kind of a thing. So if I merge these two guys together, so I've got two layers here, and I merge them together, I now have this one layer right here, which is my lace pattern. So let's look at some stuff that you can do if you've created a lacy pattern like that. You know, how can you use that on something else? So I'm going to move it up here to the top for a minute. Let's say that we wanted to create, I don't know, a lacy heart or something like that. Let's use our mirroring tool to help us make a heart. I'm going to use the vector tool. Nice red heart. Let me turn that off for a minute so I can see what I'm doing. Make sure fill is on and simplify is up high because I want something that looks smooth. You try a couple of times to get a decent heart. Okay, we'll call that a heart. Now we have our pattern up here, and if we just turn it on, of course it covers up everything like that. But if we wanted to make it work on just the heart, we would move it directly above the heart. so that the pattern is there, and then we could change the mode to on, and that would limit it to only on the heart, like that. So now we have kind of a cool lacy looking heart with some three-dimensionality to it too. We can also use transform on that. Sorry, crashed. Okay, I think I'm back. Am I back? 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're back. So like I was about to say, you can transform the lacy layer, make it a little smaller, so that it's going to just barely cover the heart. That's just going to give you a little bit more smaller kind of lacy look to it, like that. Alright, so that's one way to use it. Any questions on what I did there? Because I know I crashed in the middle of it. Alright, let's turn the mirroring back off here. Let's take this a little bit farther. Since we have this cool heart, let's merge these together. So I now have my lacy heart is on a single layer, just like that. And let's fill the background with a darkish red of some kind. And then let's actually model this a little bit. We'll go to the layer above the heart, choose the on mode so that it will limit it to only painting on the heart. And I'm going to use the big soft brush and a really dark red, and we'll kind of paint over the bottom parts of this heart a little bit to make it some shadows. And then we'll do the opposite with a really light red up at the top. Maybe it's gonna have to be more whitish. And then we'll put in somewhere like a really completely white highlight in a couple of spots maybe. So now we made it look kind of three-dimensional a little bit. We'll merge that together so we have our three-dimensional heart is here. And let's copy him a couple of times. Copy. That way we can transform one of them so we can have more than one of these. Maybe make them different sizes, move them around a little bit. I don't know. Should I put one behind the other one? Yeah, we'll put one behind the other one just because. Alright, so now I have all of these guys. And down here I'm going to take another layer and stick it above the background. And I want to actually create a pattern that's behind these guys. So in order to do that, I'm going to work on this layer that's above the background. And since we're working in red mode, I'll make it like a somewhat lighter red. We'll put our mirroring back on. This time, let's use the pixels tool. Pixels tool is fun for making patterns. So we'll use some really big squares, and we'll set the inset a little bit so that they're not too close together. And I don't know if I need 3D on. I'll leave it on there. Anyway, I want to put some squares here. Just a few. And then I will go back to my handy dandy kaleidoscope. And I'll mess around a little bit with these pixels until I get something interesting. That's pretty good. Then we'll use transform with tiled on maybe. And we'll shrink this down and create like an interesting pattern that's now back behind there. Now you will notice that when you tile them down, that you get these little areas where you can tell where the tile happened. It cuts off. So to get rid of that, all you have to really do is kaleidoscope it again, and that will produce some kind of a pattern that doesn't have any obvious seams in it. There. Alright. Yeah, you could have a lot of fun with this, huh? Alright, so let's copy that guy there. So we have two of them, because I want to make it look a little bit 3D. I'm going to do the exact same thing as I did before. I'm going to darken the lower layer and then transform it a little bit. I think we used 6 and -6 before, so we'll do that again. 6 and -6. And now it doesn't look too three-dimensional because this background color here is so dark you can't see it, so we'll make it a little lighter. Something like that maybe. So now we have lacy hearts floating in a red filter. Too much fun. Let's merge those. I'm going to multiply on this to darken it again. Actually, let's not multiply it. Let's do something different, because we did the multiply trick before. This time I'm going to just use a big fuzzy brush. Very big. With a really dark red color. And I actually got to turn the mirroring off. And I'm just going to make a dark spot here. And then I'll use the transform tool to make it bigger and decide where I want to put it. My objective here is just to make it so that the background is not all the same. I want it to be darker in some places than others. Something like that. Alright. So now we've created that. We might want to also create another area where it's light, perhaps. I don't know. But we'll use dodge to lighten up some areas of this a little bit. That's too much. I just want to lighten it up a little bit over there. Okay, so now we now we have this. What can we do to mess this all up? Let's take this whole thing and merge it all together, just for fun. Because really part of the fun of pattern making is the experiments that you can do. So we'll take this, transform it, put tile down, and see what we get here. There we go. So now we've created a very intricate and interesting, very three-dimensional pattern that we can use for a background, or again we can overlay it on something. We can do whatever we want with it. Alright, let's save that out. You can spend hours playing with this. What would happen if we transformed this one? What happens if we run this through our kaleidoscope? I don't know. Let's find out. Whoa, look at that. We can get some pretty weird stuff out of this now. Isn't it fun? Look at this. Look at some of the intricacy that we got out of that. Yeah. Fun stuff. Alright, so now that we have a pattern, we'll use this pattern, why not? Let me save this out here. Let me show you another trick that you can use. Once you have the pattern and you want to use it in your drawing, one of the things that you can do, let's make a few copies of this before I destroy it. This off. Is we have the ability with our transform tool to do three-dimensional type of transformations. Now one thing you can do is just with the tiled mode on, you can grab a corner, and to grab a corner you press down on it and hold until it flashes once, and then drag the corner around until you get an interesting effect. This will be a sort of a wild 3D sort of going back into space type of effect. Yeah, I know, it's kind of fun, huh? Wow! So that's one thing you can do with the three-dimensional stuff. Another thing that you can do is actually drag the corners around. Like first we'll take the top and drag it down by using the handle that's directly in the middle of the top there, like this. So I'm going to drag this down, like yo, and then I'll take each one of the corners and I'll drag them in separately, like this. Whoops. Hold it down long enough to get it. There. And by doing that, I can create the illusion that this pattern is moving back into space. Alright, so now let's take one of our other patterns that we kept because we were smart to keep them, and we'll transform this in a similar way, except this one we'll move it over this way, and we'll take the bottom corner and we'll move it up to touch there. And now we've created a wall. So we've got a floor and a wall. And we'll create another wall on the other side using our other pattern. I know, it makes us look like, wow, how did he paint that? It's all Sketch Club. Sketch Club did it. And then we just need the back wall, which we'll put in there. Maybe we'll leave it so that there's a little bit of area over the top. Yeah, maybe not. We'll fill it in. Put this one in the back so that it looks a little better. Wow. Okay, so now we have this three-dimensional box with all these patterns that we created on the walls. Let me save for a moment. So what can we do with this? Let's merge all this down onto one layer so it's just there. And we'll take a brush and we'll use first a nice multiply layer, and we'll use black, and we use our big soft brush, and we got to put some shadows in these corners because what if I got multiply on? It'll look more three-dimensional if there's a little bit of shadowing to it. So we'll shadow it in a little bit. And then we'll use our handy dandy dodge layer to lighten up some areas, similar way. Make it look like there's light hitting a little bit. Yeah. So now you have like a three-dimensional scene that you can put stuff into. We can let's bring out Petey the P and put him in here. He's got to be green, so I'm going to use a vector to create a circle. There he is. Oop, I forgot to make him green. He can't be gray. Got to be green. There he is. So there's Petey the P. Of course, he doesn't look nearly three-dimensional enough to be inside this box, does he? So we'll use our same tricks that we used before. We'll use the on mode, and we'll get a little bit of darkness going. Get our soft brush, and oh, I think I didn't grab the soft brush. Soft brush, and we'll put some shadows on the bottom part of Petey. And then we'll use a light to make a little bit of light on the top side of him so he looks more three-dimensional. Put a highlight on him somewhere so that he looks like he's 3D again. There he is. But he's not that interesting without a pattern on him. Maybe we should put a pattern on him. Actually, let's do a light beam. I think I showed you in one of the previous classes how to do a light beam. We'll use the vector tool, and we use white and square, and we just use it to draw a big square area like this. Then we use the transform tool to grab the corners and drag them close to each other so we get this kind of an effect. Then on our filters, we use the Gaussian blur. It'll be hard to see because this is white, but Gaussian blur is the one we're going to pick here, which will blur the edges of that guy. And then we just have to reduce the opacity of him a little bit, transform him to where we want him, and we now have this nice light beam kind of effect. So Petey's in the box with the light beam. Yeah. Okay. Alright, I'll stop there for a moment, see if there's any questions about that. Guess we better save him out. Alright, fun stuff, huh? Alright, so I wanted to spend the next little part of the class being a little bit practical and showing you some ways that you can use this pattern generation concepts in other types of pictures. Because as much fun as it is to just make patterns, you know, you're not always going to be doing patterns. You might just want a pattern for a particular image. So I prepared this this little cartoon dude. He's going to be our guinea pig. He's very surprised because all of you people are watching him, and he looks surprised. Oh, look at all those people out there. Okay. But he's going to be useful. Let me show you his layers right now. There's a green background layer here. There's a color for the skin layer. There's a color for the shirt. There's color for his hair. And then there's the line work. I could probably put those together. I've got one for hair and one for, and then he's got his eyeballs are there all by themselves. I usually start out with the eyes on a single layer, just because then I can move them around. Oh, I'm looking over there. Oh, I'm looking over there. Looking down there. We'll let him just look surprised for now. Yeah, that's why I put him on a separate layer, just so I can move him around and get different expressions. Okay, so let's say that we wanted to put a pattern on his shirt, because his shirt is this really boring blue. Let's create one right here we'll use yellow, because yellow would be nice. And we want to do some sort of, I don't know, thread-like pattern. So we can use the vector tool, except we'll have fill off for this. And we'll put our mirroring on, and we'll just kind of create some sort of thread-like pattern. It doesn't matter exactly what it is. Something like that maybe might work. Turn our mirroring off and use our handy-dandy kaleidoscope to create a more interesting kind of pattern. Something like that maybe. Yeah, that's good. Then we use tile, transform it with tile on to make the pattern smaller, because this is going to have to go on his shirt after all. So let's say about like that. Move that layer down directly over the layer that has the shirt color on it, and set its mode to on, and that will clip it to the shirt. So just like that, we have this cool little pattern on his shirt, and it's not so boring blue. Alright, did you see how I did that? That's a way to actually use the patterns and overlay them onto other things. You have to plan ahead a little bit, have your color on a layer by itself so that you can clip it like that. Alright, let's do it again with his hair. And where's these guys here? So let's take a empty layer. This one here is empty at the moment. And I don't know what we'll do with his hair. It's maybe we'll stick with yellow. Might be kind of fun. And I don't know. Let's use one of the procedural tools this time. Every tool in here can be used to make patterns, and they create all these different kinds of patterns depending on which tool you use. It's just too much fun. Let's use scaffold here to create something strange and mechanical looking. We'll kaleidoscope that down into some interesting something or others. Whoa! Alright, I crashed. Oh, crashed again. I'm back though. We still here? Everybody hear it? Let me know if the sound is coming through again. I had to restart. Okay. So you get the idea. Now we're going to transform that with tiled on to make it a little bit smaller. And with the idea that we're going to put this onto his hair, I'll just kind of estimate it. Drag this down so it's directly over his hair layer. Set it to the on mode. Maybe reduce the opacity a little. And there we go. Some interesting kind of pattern for his hair. Just sort of for fun. Crazy hair highlights, yeah, it could be. Now remember all the things that I showed you earlier in the class on making the patterns three-dimensional. You can do all of those things first, and then put the pattern down onto a single layer and clip it just like this to a part of your drawing. The rest of it is still there. I've just told it because I've set this mode, the mode of this layer, to on. Only that means only draw on the parts where the layer below it has something. So that forces it to clip it to where this brown is. Now if I change it to other things, you'll see that it's there still. And in fact, one of the fun things with patterns is to try them out with different blending modes and see what they do. Whee! This guy does look very surprised, doesn't he? He's a surprised little elfie dude. Alright. Something else that I have occasionally done, and which can produce an interesting result. Let's say that I was going to do a shadow layer for this guy. I would do that with multiply, using the vector tool, with fill on, and then I would draw in the places where I want shadows to be on this guy. Oops, I need to turn the layer on though. So I'm just going to do this quickly. I won't be too careful about it. And I'll create the shadow layer for this guy. I guess we'll say that the light's coming from that side. I don't know. I'll soften up the edges here in a minute, but I'm just putting some shadows on this guy so that he has a little bit of shadows to him, because I want to show you something else that you can maybe do with your patterns if you want to. It can be interesting anyway. I would usually take more time and make these a little more precise, but just for demonstration purposes, I'll do it quickly here. Alright, so there we've done done some shadowing on this fellow. Let me save him out before I do this next part in case it blows up. Still got sound? I think I was just being quiet. So I will use the filter on these guys. Go to my Gaussian blur filter, and I just want to blur it a little bit, not too much. So I'll turn down the radius of it just to soften up the edges a hair. Yeah, that wasn't enough. Do it again. Let's try it there. Yeah, okay. Not the best shadowing job, but you get the idea. Now what would happen if we created a pattern? Let's create a new pattern. Something that's going to be really visible. Let's use a blue. We'll even use vector on this one. And we'll create some blue junk. Blue junk. Woo. And maybe some yellow too. I'm going to go totally garish with this just for the sake of showing you what I'm talking about here. And then I used my kaleidoscope to create some kind of wild pattern out of that. And I tiled it down like I do to make it smaller. Whee! Now this is above the, currently it's above the shadow layer. So if I set it to on, it will now only draw itself where the shadows are. And so the effect that I get is this kind of bizarre patterns showing up where the where the shadows are. It can be fun to play around with, just to make the shadows areas a little more interesting, a little more exciting. Fun, huh? And of course I still have the option of moving this around. I could put it over just the skin, for example. This is turning into Mr. Pattern Boy. Look at him. He's got patterns on everything. And they totally clash and don't make any sense with each other. Or if I put it in the back, then it becomes a pattern for the background of the drawing. I kind of like it there because since the class is about patterns, maybe we'll make this our mascot. Pattern Boy. He probably won't be as famous as Petey the P, though. Alright, now I just want to fix up his eyes because he has boring eyes. They're just flat blue. And I can't help but dodge them a little, you know, just because. Boring flat blue eyes. And he needs pupils, I know. We'll give him a pupil. Oop, that one's too big. That's why they make transform. Uh-oh, did the sound stop again? I might have accidentally tapped it. I didn't mean to. Alright. There. Alright. There he is, Pattern Boy. He's fun. I'd probably fix him up a little bit, give him a little more shading to his face and what have you. But that's the basic idea. Yeah, actually my wife is doing the dishes. You can hear that way over there? I'm surprised that you can hear that. So any more questions about this? Different ways to do patterns. I hope I've given you some food for thought about how patterns can be created and used in your pictures. Yeah, that's pretty good. We'll call this guy Pattern Boy. There he is. I should still put a pattern on the background though, huh? I don't know. Is the sound gone again? Or the sound back? Oh, okay, you can still hear. So there he is, Pattern Boy, with all of his conflicting patterns. Yeah, he was fun to do. All right, any questions before I close it off, and then I'll upload the video afterwards. I still want to put a pattern in his background though, because he needs a pattern in his background. I wonder if I have any layers left. I've used so many. No, I'm done with layers here. So I'll have to merge something. Maybe I can merge this one down. I'll merge that one. There. Want to do a patterns compo? I don't know. That'd be fine with me. I'm sure we can come up with some cool patterns. It'd be fun to see how people use them. Let's use the particles. Particles. I won't be able to see this though. Let me put it at the top so I can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to draw some strange particles. Whee! I love the particle tool. It's just like freaky looking. Then we'll kaleidoscope that for our background strangeness. Oh, this is going to look almost like little clouds or something. They're kind of cool. And we'll drag that down above the background like that. There. Now we probably have enough. We probably have enough patterns on Pattern Boy now. Yeah, that is kind of cool. And of course you could three-dimensionalize it, you could filter it, you can add some other stuff. It's all fun. Alright, I guess we're done for now. Yeah, I don't think it's busy enough. It needs to be busier. Excuse me. Okay, then I'll call it a class, and I'll upload the video in a while. And if Black Pawn wants to make it into a compo, that'd be cool too. Hope you enjoyed it. I had a good time. I never know what I'm going to get with patterns. They're just too much fun to play with.